There are 7.8 billion people living on this planet, but still loneliness is a major issue around every corner of the world. No matter how intensely we interact with each other in school, work or on social media, that still cannot be a remedy to our loneliness. Okay, but why? Should we strictly avoid loneliness? Or maybe it's just a natural state, but we just forgot to enjoy our own company. First and foremost, being in a crowd cannot eliminate loneliness because it's possible to feel lonely around people. In other words, if you're not on the same wavelength as others, alienation or preferred solitude are highly possible outcomes. For example, Franz Kafka produced his fascinating works in the middle of a chaotic and disordered environment because he managed to build his loneliness like silkworms spinning a cocoon. At any moment, all of a sudden, we can decide to live in seclusion. We know that human beings cannot exclude being social by definition. Our happiness, mental health, how we think about ourselves are all wired in social settings through the relationships we build with other people. Besides this fact, we are currently living in the age of self-improvement or personal growth. Even the words we use illustrate our focal point, which is individualism. In the modern age, social improvement can't even be mentioned besides self-improvement. The message is clear: go and save yourself. We are all secretly told you just need to grow in person. Let's disregard society for now, it will take care of itself anyway. That makes absolute sense up to some point, because the development of societies is like getting blood from a stone. On the flip side, individual efforts are more likely to be fruitful after all. If you're not capable of cleaning your dirt, how can you do it for others? As the metaphor Jordan Peterson often uses, clean your damn room first, then later you can think of worthy problems. So we are forced to think individually, therefore loneliness is inevitable at some point. Okay, no problem. We came to Earth alone and we will live alone, so let every top stand on its own bottom. But here is the conundrum. A highly developed individual is also in need of a highly developed community. If you're an intellectual person, you also need other enlightened minds that will appreciate your existence and even make it meaningful. As long as this healthy environment is not found, you become a fluffed couch grass bleeding in the middle of a sick society. Human nature always requires a sense of belonging, and this need is fulfilled when you become a part of something bigger than yourself. Herd behavior occurs in animals, in herds, packs, bird flocks, fish schools, and so on, as well as in humans. You might think that we live in extremely complex and interdependent societies, but just like in other creatures, our main motive is to be a group. School, companies, channels, blogs, forums, social media groups, associations, and friends are all some sort of a group. That's a survival instinct that we strive to fill. Most people become a part of a poor quality group just to feel safe and fulfill this instinct, and they end up harming themselves in the long term. Why do many youngsters become gang members at an early age? They fill the gap of their family needs through the wrong social environments. So we pursue groups to feel more secure and loved. That's why people freak out to be alone, because this is not how we evolved in wild nature. We always become a part of a community to increase our survival chances. When TVs were starting to become popular, it was a device that we used all together, because it was not possible to watch it anytime, anywhere. Right now, the options and preferences are limitless. We can decide the time, speed, or the quality of the material we will consume with ease. Due to the increase in our preferences, we became compartmentalized. Back then, the TV show X was on Wednesday at 9 p.m. and there was no replay, so people used to come together in a room for it. Later, each room started to have its own TV and owner. Even the concept of separate rooms in a house is an entirely different process. Indigenous people used to, and some of them still, live on one-room tiny houses. For example, the transition from heating stoves to central heating has changed the dynamics of our homes. And lastly, the internet and smartphones took everything to another level. In research conducted in 2017, 22% of teenagers in the USA have no friends at all. Can you imagine how crazy that is? These teens need human interaction more than ever, but they have nobody to share their thoughts and emotions. Ecuador has the Ministry of Happiness, and it's one of the happiest countries in the world. England also has the Ministry of Loneliness because it's one of the loneliest countries in the world. 200,000 old individuals who live in the UK have declared that they did not talk to anybody for the last month. What a ruthless torture is this? If you don't get the severity of the situation, let me remind you that solitary confinement is just as bad as death penalty, if not worse. What's the worst punishment in criminal law? You go to prison to be isolated from society, but they can also put you in solitary confinement where you interact with nobody as the ultimate penalty. penalty. When you leave people in a dark room alone for a long time, they start to have conversation with illusional characters. The brain is capable of creating illusional personas to suppress such pain. You probably encountered language learning apps where you find a partner to practice speaking from a different country. In these apps, you must see that 90% of those people are old, because they have nobody to talk in their life. They are in pursuit of fulfilling the most basic social need. What do they get? Well, at least somebody pays them attention for a while, even though it's for practicing language. Rage is also a symptom of loneliness. Why do you think there is an enormous amount of wordy warfare on the internet? Why do people spread hatred and all negative emotions so easily? These are the result of suppressed emotions, and most people use the internet as a solution to express themselves because nobody cares about them in real life. Comment sections, likes, dislikes and shares are abused by psychologically harmed individuals. Since nobody sees their faces, they can write whatever they want. Physical presence is not required for communication anymore, because the online world is where everything happens. People mostly prefer web-based platforms to communicate, and they believe it's more convenient for self-expression. It's possible to offend people easily when you don't put emojis in the text messages. What happens to the vital elements of communication such as body language and tone of voice? How to tell sarcasm or irony in text form? The advancement of technology inevitably resulted in commodification of human values. The male population sees women as sex objects because of extreme pornography consumption, and females only focus on status and money in men. Minds are covered with social interests, and the eyes are glued on the material world. The capitalist system is ruthless. All the advertising industry is there to encourage consumerism. They offer you products to get rid of loneliness, sexual desires, and tiredness, while new lacks of contentment bring into existence. Is your job boring and meaningless? Do you feel useless and exhausted? Does your life have no meaning at all? So whenever you deal with loneliness, they'll tell you to buy something for a cure. Go buy a book and you will get all the answers. Or just buy a session from a therapist. Or here is the best amazing pill. Or all you need is a great vocation. Do they really offer a solution? Well, you know the answer. Why would you pay them if you got rid of the problem? What's the role of the technology here at this point? First of all, technology definitely destroyed provincialism. Today we are all living in cities and everybody is informed about anything. Even if you live in a small village, it's possible to watch a lecture from the best universities of the world for free. If there is a fire disaster in Australia, a native of Missouri can know it in seconds. We can't talk about loneliness in this context, like being alone in a small world. Contrarily, we have hundreds of thousands of friends on social media, but it still doesn't offer a solution to loneliness because those friendships are only on the surface level. They're not deep and meaningful. How often do we meet up with these people? Well, not at all. We even find our flirts on online platforms. There's a thing called sexting. Moreover, most people satisfy their partners through cybersex. The movie Her covered this topic very well. In a nutshell, there's an artificial intelligence app just like Google Assistant or Apple's Siri in the movie. When you talk to her, she responds like a human being, and in course of time she becomes specialized for you. So it turns out the leading actor falls in love with her. Let's don't blame him. It must be hard to resist Scarlett Johansson's voice. Who can deny a friend who knows everything about you, listens to your troubles, and gives you a nice piece of advice without making no judgment at all? The movie Her takes place in a world that is not very different from today's world. The hero is one of us. He eats, goes to work, has friends, is divorced, and lives alone. This loneliness is both the cause and the result of a narcissistic personality. He does not want to be alone, but he's too selfish to bear any people, even the spouse he shares his life with. That's when technology comes into play. Technology is the ultimate tool that we can use to make up for what's lacking the most. However, it ended up becoming more than just a tool when we see it as an ultimate solution. Today, it's rather misused for self-satisfaction or overindulgence for selfish interest. Ironically, we still feel more alone despite using all the technology in the world. The authorities also want you to be part of this because they freak out from people who are strong enough to stand alone. That's why companies, governments, and power holders do their best to eliminate loneliness from your life. Because when you're alone, your mind can become divergent. Even the toilets have screens instead of walls anymore. Henry David Thoreau built a house near Walden Lake to escape from the impositions of the system. He questioned whether a solitary life is possible or not, and wrote about the experiences. We can say that loneliness is a great concept if it's not a lifelong commitment. Just like permanent and forced social companionships can be terrible, Permanent loneliness would also be cruel torture. However, loneliness is essential requirement, especially for creative works and projects. Undoubtedly, human beings can do wonders when they are gathered under the right circumstances. Unbelievable works like Going to the Moon, amazing inventions, life-changing movies, songs, and theaters are all products of efficient collective work. You can bring together 1,000 chimpanzees, all you get will be a chaos. So the magic does not lie behind the numbers. It's not the quantity, but the quality of the people you have. But how can you talk about quality in a crowd where nobody enjoys their own companionship? Being social is a great way to nurture the mind, but loneliness is required for absorption. We desperately need solitude to make sure what we went through makes sense, through internalizing and drawing the right conclusions. Its cruciality particularly peaked in an era where we are bombarded with social distractions. So loneliness cannot be a problem by itself. When you don't know what to do with it, it just becomes a problem. When you master being alone, you find an endless source of creativity. Any creative work takes its main nourishment from solitude. Loneliness is bliss when we are capable of living it to the full. The more you're dependent on the masses, the more you lose your uniqueness. Let me share it on social media so you all like, make comments and entertain me. So I feel my existence really means something. The cups inside us are already empty. Well, what's the best way to fill them? Happily, you know the answer anymore. Loneliness is the only way to discover our self-sufficiency. Preferred and regularly practiced solitude is such a great privilege. If you learn to become a good company to yourself, then you feel content and complete. So the next time whenever you get in your car, you don't need to open a song immediately. The TV in your living room does not have to make noise all the time. You don't have to call someone when you feel bored or sad. There are certain things in life that can only be done alone, and these are essentially the most nurturing activities for human beings. Thinking, for example, requires an internal process where you need to focus your shift on your inner world. Reading can't be done properly in group work. Writing also strictly requires solitude. We don't even think about making future plans or try to learn from our past in the crowd. You watched this video thanks to my loneliness, because it allowed me to focus on all the thinking, writing, editing and producing. So don't escape and don't freak out when you're alone. Make it your servant and use it for your goals, because you wanna be more. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, please leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next video.